It is January 24th, 2022. I will officially call to order this meeting of the Blackstone Millville School District Regional School Committee at 6:02 p.m. Before we start on budget, I wanted to take a minute and clarify for the record what we voted on last Thursday at a school committee meeting, and that was to discontinue the use of test and stay as an option for students who were close contacts in school. And I think we need a little clarification on whether or not, so we will not be notifying folks as to whether or not they are a close contact to someone who does test positive. I believe that's correct, and we will no longer be offering the ability to test. We'll only test students who come in symptomatically and send them home if they test positive. But I think what's unclear is when exactly this new procedure process is starting. When are we ending the test and stay? And what expectation is there for families to notify us if they have a positive case in their family? And do they notify Karen, as they have been doing? And when does that all start?
Great. So that is effective today, as far as the discontinuing of the test and stay, and the starting or continuing rather. Well, I should say discontinuing of contact tracing as well, but the continuing of testing those that are symptomatic in school, those students. And yes, families should continue to notify Karen of a positive case in their home so that we can plan accordingly. I think one of the recent challenges we have had, the outside of school protocols did not change. So if a student is a close contact at home and cannot isolate from the positive member, those, if you look at our current protocols for out of district close contacts, that language has not changed. It is only the in-school close contacts, specifically as it relates to contact tracing and test and stay.
So that has not changed because it has not changed through the State Department
Correct.
of Health?
That is correct. We have not received updated protocols from them yet. They are, if you might recall on Thursday, Karen had mentioned that we should in the next week or so be receiving additional updated protocols from the Department of Public Health and Education. We have not received those yet. And I did check just as recent as about 15 minutes ago. We did get an update from the commissioner, but the updated protocols were not there.
Okay. So am I the only person who sees a disconnect between I'm a close contact to somebody at school because I sit next to them at lunch, but I can still come to school provided I'm checking my symptoms because I'm not even going to be told I'm a close contact, but I'm a close contact at the Boys and Girls Club and I can't come to school for 10 days or 5 days?
Yeah, it's not 10 days, it's 5 days. It's
Well,
because
it's 10 if they're not vaccinated.
Right, if they're not vaccinated.
Not fully vaccinated.
Yep. That is currently how the protocol reads until we have updated language from the Department of Public Health.
Wow. And we have no authority to change that.
I think we can do what we choose to do, if I may be so bold. That is just the language that we have currently.
Okay.
But I feel like I asked a clarifying question last week saying so there were no more close contacts. So how can we do that? How can we say if you're a close contact outside of school, you cannot come to school, but if you're a close contact in school, we're not even going to tell you?
So my sense is, and I'm certainly not a medical expert on this topic, although I think we all probably feel like we could be at this point, having done this so long. Aaron, to your question, my sense is it is because of a couple things. When you're in school, we're still keeping the distancing, the 3 feet and masking. And so we have more control over close contacts at school. The only time they're unmasked is at lunch, indoors at lunch, and at snack. And so, again, my sense is that's probably how the language and why the language is framed the way it is for now in terms of in school versus out of school, where they may not be distanced and they may not be masked. I'm not an expert on this. I'm just sharing kind of what my sense is.
My sense is we're attempting to curb the spread. We know that 98% of the close contacts in a school don't become positive cases themselves.
Correct.
But we don't know that for the community.
Correct.
So we have no control. Okay. Well, we have no control. All right. So I don't think that we were clear that the out of school protocols remain the same. But are we clear now? Whether we agree or not, which. Okay. All right. Okay. We'll leave it at that. Having said that, we'll move to the meeting over to Dr. DeFalco to talk us through budgets.
Great, thank you so much. This evening we are at our second half of our budget workshops with our cost center managers, and we are going to begin with Ms. Fowlis at the high school. And as I was saying before we get started, I attempted to do it a little bit different, so I actually scanned all the documents into one PDF that I'll kind of walk through, because as you are aware from your packet, there's quite a few documents included in this evening's presentation. So if you give me just a moment, I will share my screen and see if I can fire up the right document here. Let me see if I can move this. Okay, so can Jane, can you see this okay?
I sure can.
Is it big enough that you can read it?
I sure can, and I have learned to, oh, that's even better. Yep, okay. Beautiful.
I won't even need my glasses.
Perfect. All right, so we'll try this format and see if this works better than the individual Google Docs. And so with that, Ms. Fowlis, I will turn this over to you. Thanks for being here.
Evening, everyone. Happy Monday. So I would say that the overarching theme really for the high school budget involves supporting our pathways and providing additional opportunities for our students to participate in both in school and out. Going through the budget, what you have here is some of the similarities, and we're just pulling out. And having never done this before, I will gladly accept feedback. The English department looking at centers around their instructional focus of 8. So the ACE of analyze, support, and explain. So they're looking for materials to support that and supplemental novels. Foreign language is continuing, with their comprehensible input, alignment with their curriculum. And so that is the subscriptions that will help support the teachers in that. The math is always looking for calculators, and the professional development to support our teachers with the new curriculum that will be implemented in the fall of 2022. One of our most popular courses, and I think that's going to grow in popularity, is our Food for Thought course. They just participated in a chopped food challenge. And so the Food for Thought course is new, and so that is a new additional funding that we're being intentional to have added. It was new this year, and it was kind of a budget afterthought. Art room, we are trying to clean up some broken equipment, and that's where the storage and the desks, the work tables, are being added, as well as adding to eventually get to a class set with the iPad Airs that are being used in a variety of sources in the art and some of the design. The extruder, I found out, is for the clay. They need that for art.
Oh, okay. I'm like, what's an extruder? Okay, thank you.
for our pottery. I actually got to see them using that with the pottery. I will say I'm very impressed with the what they can build without necessarily having wheels for the pottery piece. No change to the budget as far as science is concerned. We're gonna get outside with our golf clubs, and the freestanding adjustable bench is for the outside back parking lot area to have the ability to have seating out there. Our robotics and our PLTW will be continued to be funded by our grant, and the wood for manufacturing technology has gone up 30%, 33%. So we'll hope that covers the wood for manufacturing. Our technology department is growing and increasing in the number of students who particularly take photography, and so to alleviate sharing of equipment and allowing for individual access, that is where the Canon camera came from. The tablet is for training and design and media students on Adobe. That goes along with in supplement with the upgrade that was recently taken in technology. Probably the biggest change is here in the counseling, and that was mentioned at a previous school committee meeting. The budget for $14,000 is to support our dual enrollment pathway for our students who are interested in participating in QCC, Quinsigamond Community College courses. At this point, we would have 40 students being able to be supplemented at the $350 course price tag at this particular point in time, but we are looking at maybe a sliding scale to get more students to be able to participate. And we have 4 students who are enrolled this spring. The extracurricular piece with our esports, so that number is based off a quote. I contacted Sutton High School when they did their esports facility room, when the principal sent me that, and that was from 2018. For us, and I've done a little bit more research, we have the ability to use some existing computers, and particularly the Macs, but that budget would allow us to launch this and include some of the fees and essential gaming. As far as staff is concerned, to build onto our business pathway, we were asking for a business teacher. That would allow us to add an entrepreneurship course to our program of studies, and the possibility of adding accounting as well to have a true business pathway. Extracurricular activities, and looking for to add to students being able to access clubs after school would include the Chargers for Change, adding 3 new clubs, which would be Speech and Debate, our Future Business Leaders of America, which would participate in some competitive activities. We also have a Crystal Club that students are getting together to share their love of crystals. We have, okay. Yes, there is a need. And that was completely grassroots from the students seeking out a faculty sponsor. We're also working with our advisory for our Charter Community Time on Fridays, and of course, adding to that esports advisor and coach position. That is the high school.
Would the esport advisor and coach be similar to a soccer coach, or similar to a club advisor?
I have the proposal splitting the difference, so to speak, because there are 2 seasons to the esports, and when I asked around to the other DVC schools, some do a spring and a fall coaching stipend, others do it just as one.
And there's like other schools they compete against?
Yes, they compete against. So they compete We're looking to have a team start this spring as a trial to dip our toe in the water. I've got some volunteer coaches and I've got some students who are super excited to start this in March. Actually, we registered by February 11th, and you compete 4 o'clock on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, depending on what we join in. Some of them are in Massachusetts, others are regional, depending on what we join in, what games we play and compete against. And
it's computer games, right? It's
fun fact,
right?
$50 million are given in academic or in esports scholarships to college. So there's the future. When your kid says he's practicing, there you go.
Very interesting.
Who knew?
Yes, 50 million. So we're looking at using the Nintendo Switches to participate in Smash and Splatoon. We can use some gaming computers for Rocket League, but those were the suggestions to kind of get our feet wet.
It'd be like hockey, and they provide their own equipment, their own Switch.
Well, I've volunteered or voluntold my sons, so because he doesn't use it.
Oh,
So we have one, Ms. Fallis.
we have one.
Right, we got one. And if we register, I get a second one because I won the prize. So there you go.
Oh, there you go.
So will there be fees associated with that? Can we talk a little bit about that program and what's going to be involved?
So it is an MIAA. It falls under the MIAA.
It does?
Yes, it falls under the MIAA. Yes, there are certain schools where the esports is also under the heading of the athletic director. And the athletic director would run the esports program as well.
Wow.
So it's under MIAA. They contract with Play VS. MIAA does with Play VS. So there is a fee to play. There's 8 seats, 16 seats, and unlimited seats. The highest number is $1,500 for the unlimited to play for the season. They do play other teams. They have rankings. They have preseason. They have postseason. They have practices after school, which include, skill-based and then some scrimmaging, but also talking about watching their film and participating, critiquing, and seeing how their gameplay and depending on what they're doing, if it's a team game like a Rocket League, you can play 2v2 or 3v3. But they actually are analyzing their
Okay, Jill, you know too much. Sorry.
I've attended 2 webinars on this, and I actually have a 12-year-old who right now is practicing because he is on a Rocket League team with a coach. So, but he's not even at the high school level yet. So I'm pulling for that 50 million, Jane.
Wow. So League of Legends, I don't even know, like Call of Duty. That's the only, I don't know. I know none of this.
No,
I don't think it has anything to do with Call of Duty, Jane.
Oh, no, it's on the list, Jason. It's on the list.
Rocket League is like soccer with cars.
Okay.
And then you have Smash and Splatoon. And those are on the Nintendo Switch.
So similar to playing soccer, you have to be academically eligible to play
Correct.
these sports.
Yes, you do.
This is the most, I've never thought in my entire life we would be encouraging kids to sit in front of a computer game more than they already are.
So this
Competitive
is really
gaming is a huge
interesting in that-
entity.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I was saying competitive gaming is a huge entity. There's a tournament every year where there's a $10 million prize.
Yep.
Yeah,
But
but to me that I've associated that with like a gambling kind of, it's hard for me to make that leap. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but from being outside and or inside, and I don't know. I don't know. This is interesting. I'm learning.
Yeah. So it does fall in alignment, and it does have the competition with, STEM, and it does fall in, if I could pull out the portrait of the graduate, which I do love to talk about, And looking at, this idea of collaboration and communication and
Sure,
creativity.
sure.
But it also is looking at what it's really interesting is, and the focus is to get the students who are not necessarily involved in after school activities and wouldn't necessarily consider themselves I guess you would say an athlete, they're an e-athlete, and really kind of tap into a different population that's going home and playing video games anyway, but let's do it together in a collaborative, cooperative manner and talk
Yeah.
about.
Is there any kind of teamwork, or it's everybody gets their own Switch and go for
No,
it?
they play, so for instance, when they play Smash, I believe it's a 3-person versus 3-person. So you would get on the platform. So for instance, Jane, if you're coaching the team from Quabog, and
They would win. They would win, but okay, go ahead.
and I'm coaching, we're just coaching, we're not playing. And I've got
It's
the
okay,
BMR,
it doesn't matter. They would win.
kids. We would get on the platform together, and then you've got your lineup with the first, second, and third person who is going to play. They compete against each other on the same platform. The coaches are able to communicate, log the scores and see where you go from there, and be successful.
Wow.
And you register your team scores for championships. Shrewsbury evidently is the champion from last time. Oh, and I'm sorry, Rob thinks it's MSAA, not MIAA, but the sister program. It's like cheerleading. It's a club. MSAA. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that, because I'm on the MIAA website and I'm not finding anything. So that may be why.
Yep. No, Rob saved me. So thank you for that message. I'm glad I looked at that.
Wow.
Will
Who
this
knows?
be go ahead.
Go ahead, Tammy. No, or Amanda, who was ever asking.
Will this be something that also middle school will be involved in, or is it a high school only?
This is, I believe the age is, so they talked about this because some students have, some schools have the 7 through 12. I'd have to go back and look at my notes. I thought it was 13, but I would have to double check, Amanda.
I'm sure it would be more appropriate going by the ratings on the games. You can't have a 12-year-old or a 13-year-old playing Call of Duty.
No, there's no Call of Duty. There's
No, it's League of Legends, Rocket League, and Super Smash Brothers Ultimate in the MSAA.
Yes. Splatoon is another fast one. Where you are like rolling your color and you're trying to color more territory than the other person.
So I want to, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to, I think, expand from where Amanda started. Are we putting user fees and somehow help increase them so we can cover some of these costs?
Well, if it's a club, we don't have user fees. If it's a sport with a coach and we play and we pay and they pay and we don't bus them anywhere. We don't. I assume every matchup is a home matchup.
It is.
So it would not have user. So it would not have a user fee.
But there is a coach, an advisor and coach.
But there's that's why I asked the question that I asked. Is it a coach like a soccer coach who the stipends are considerably different between somebody who serves as an advisor and somebody who serves as a coach.
Well, how do we treat cheerleading in that sense? If we're saying cheerleading competes in the same.
Do they pay a user fee?
Cheerleading does, yeah. So I would say it's similar to cheerleading. It's under the same governing body and stuff like that.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, no problem.
Then I would say they would be a sport with fees.
I could research that and ask what
other places do.
Yeah.
Schools do.
So on the
Usually there's fees for
MSA,
some of the competitions. So, I mean, if we just knew some of,
right,
just to share the burden a little bit, in order to support this, I think.
Wow. There's like a whole website just for, wow.
a website.
Oh, well, yeah, no, I mean, there's no, but just for Massachusetts.
Ms. Fowlis.
Yes.
The equipment, I know you're talking about switches. Let's talk about other hardware. What else would you need besides game controllers, switches? You talked about gaming PCs. What gaming PCs are you talking about?
So I, full disclosure, am not good where you have numbers and dots and, you know, things of that nature. What I did when I had the webinar was I sent the specs to Damien Gaudet, who was one of our technology teachers. And he said we do have some of the new Macs that we're having going to be set up in the spring, would have the capacity to run, at least for the very first piece would be Rocket League. The coach that spoke at the webinar suggested just starting small and using, relying on some of the Nintendo Switches, and then growing your club as you go along, because you don't want to get too big before you really know what you're doing. So my thought would be in the spring to start off with that small, and even if that meant we only had a certain number of teams that were able to compete, a smaller number of teams that were able to compete, and then growing that so that the technology would not be an obstacle.
Okay, because I'm just looking at it from a cost standpoint, like everyone else is, and getting 5 Nintendo Switches is roughly $1,500. And then if you're buying the games, you can buy a ton of games for another $500.
And I just asked, I reached out to Ted McCarthy at Sutton, and he just sent me his, in fact, the total bill, and that was for everything that they did for the room, which we have an appointment to go see him. It was actually canceled because of the snow day, so I have to reschedule to go see his facility. That came to $9,400. So I was just rounding up just to make sure we were covering the cost.
So I know we're going to hear from Dan. At least I think.
Yeah, Dan's got something to contribute, Jane, to this too.
Yeah, because I see a lot, not just on the esports, but I see a lot of tablets and a lot of, and I'm wondering how some of that might fit into technology leases and plans, and so I don't know if
I think he has his hand raised for this particular issue.
Happy to weigh in if you want.
Yes, I'm happy to have you weigh in,
Okay,
Dan.
so yeah, thanks. We just purchased 20 PCs in our PC lab, and they have great video cards and excellent processors, plenty of memory. And while they're not called gaming PCs, they're actually better than gaming PCs. And so if we need that hardware, we have that hardware. And I don't think there'd be any problem because the use would be after school. So those would definitely work for that purpose.
Yeah.
So with that information, we could theoretically cut this in half.
As long as we're not talking about something that requires a Nintendo Switch, like, there are some games that can only be played on a console, and I'm not going to pretend that I know those 3 games that you're talking about, if they can be played on a PC. My assumption, I believe they can, and if that's the case, we would not need to buy hardware.
So I will tell you that Super Smash Brothers Ultimate is played on a Nintendo Switch with 3 players. League of Legends is played on a PC or Mac with 5 players, and Rocket League is on a PC/console. I don't know what that means, but with 3 players.
So 2 of the 3 can be played on those PCs.
Yeah.
But I assume we need those cool headset thingies. But anyway, I don't.
Even with that, Jane, I think we could cut this budget probably by $7,500, $5,000 to $7,500, and still have the technology that we need to get this club or sport going.
Knowing now after so I submitted this budget, this piece before I attended the meeting and before I talked to Damien, I would be very comfortable with that.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
And I could go get some itemized things to amend it if that's something that would be helpful to the.
Yeah. No. Yeah, but in the next hour. No, I'm kidding. No.
Let me get Googling.
Yeah. No. I mean, I think it's important to go see the schools that are doing it and see how they set up the space. And, you know, we try to have appropriate fields and setups, and I don't know why we wouldn't do it if we prioritize adding an additional, and I'm going to call it sport. From everything in here, if we're going to treat it like cheerleading, I'm going to call it sport.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions for Jill? I still do have the question, Dan, when it's your turn, not now, but the 3 iPad Airs, the the tablets, like, is there a way to perhaps look at in addition to all our Chromebooks and everything, a package for art type technology? But I'll ask that later.
I just wanted to say for Dan, on the MSAA website, there is a list of minimum system requirements and recommended specs for each of these. And you can get jerseys also, just for the record.
Yeah.
Of course you can.
We're going to have to do that.
I do have a question on that. Do you have an anticipated time that these PCs will last? Are we thinking like this is going to be like after 3 years? Are we going to have to replace these PCs for this usage?
If it's for gaming usage, we might need to upgrade the video cards. I don't think we'd need to replace the PCs that quickly. But, you know, the most demanding use of a PC right now is for gaming. So that is possible that after 3 years, they would need something better. But we did just get these, and they're really very good computers, and they would be good for this purpose.
Do we have the proper monitors for those as well that can render graphics?
Yeah, so that might be the only thing that is not. It's a good question. The refresh rate of the monitors that we use is probably not good enough.
Yep.
And so we might have to factor that in. A monitor for that purpose is probably $200, $250, maybe a little bit less.
We'll need a few. I have a family full of gamers.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Good question.
Team number one.
We'd need the controller, which might be $60 or so.
Right. Okay.
All right. Where we got off. We got way off tangent. Anybody else have any other questions about the business teacher or the?
I have a question.
I do have a question on the business teacher. Is this?
Okay, go ahead. We'll go Amanda then Tara.
Okay. Sorry, Tara.
That's okay.
Is this something that we are looking for a lifetime teacher to teach, or is this an opportunity where we can have someone in the field come in and much like a vocational school, you know, they look for people that are in those industries and you have so long to get a teaching license. Is that something that would apply to this, or?
It is a requirement to have mass teaching license. The person that we just hired, who is right now doing, it's a hybrid split with a math position, spent 20 years in the industry,
Okay.
doing entrepreneurship. That is her expertise in that. And so that was part of the reason behind leaning towards an actual business teacher who had business experience, as opposed to a true math teacher.
That's what I was hoping to hear. Thank you.
Okay. Tara.
My question is about the QCC dual enrollment. I guess same thing with price, cost. Is there a way to ask for some of the tuition to be paid for by the student?
Yeah, so Dr. DeFalco and myself spoke about that, possibly looking at some sort of a sliding fee, because that way money could you could reduce it, or we could allow more students to participate in that. We talked about maybe just a one flat fee, but that we haven't come up to any formal decisions yet.
Okay, so would that reduce the $14,000 that's on the line?
The $14,000 is just based on 40 kids at the $350. So that would be 2 full classes. That's where that came from.
Okay.
So Tara, just doing some quick math, if we dropped that and had $100 user fee for that program, it would take us down $4,000.
Okay.
Yeah, the only piece with that is the accessibility factor. So we'll have, that's where I think, Jill, that's what you're referencing, the sliding scale piece of,
Yeah.
you have a student who is
Yeah,
free
'cause we
lunch or
can take it
reduced
down,
lunch.
but if somebody can't do the $100, I don't want to.
Right. That's the free and reduced. So it's to
Yeah.
come up with.
Yep.
So that'd be the sliding scale piece.
Thank you.
Okay. A reminder again that when there's someone sharing the screen, I don't have the ability to see you. So if you have a question, you just kind of have to speak up. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jill.
Thanks.
And if it's all right to move on, we're going to move forward to Mr. Schaefer and the music department. Mr. Schaefer, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Hello. So in regards to the music budget, additional asking transportation for the marching band mostly. So one of the challenges that we always have is that the marching band and winter program competition schedule doesn't come out for quite a while. Marching band typically comes out in March for next year. So there is a chance that there might be an additional Connecticut show. They really give us no advanced idea. So I put in initial $500 for the potential of another Connecticut show. Like I said, it might not happen. Maybe they can get another Massachusetts host. It's one of those things that we don't know. I also asked for an additional $500. We have issues with some of our electronics. We had national championships this year. One of our synthesizers just didn't go on. And we were fortunate enough that a couple of the judges hadn't seen our show before, so they just thought that the really exposed moment that was supposed to be a synthesizer solo was just supposed to be really quiet. But it's been causing us problem. I will say we are very fortunate that we have a parent of an alumni who is this audio engineer that has repaired a lot of these things for us, just because he enjoys it. However, the parts to repair those are getting a little bit more expensive. So I was hoping for an additional $500 to help repair this one synthesizer. I will also share that we have another parent who works at Berkeley, the College of Music, and she actually got a keyboard that Berkeley was going to throw away to bring to our school, which was a huge surprise. So we have an electric keyboard, which isn't quite the same as a synthesizer, but at least now we do have another instrument that was donated. Our show designer for fall, who is no longer with us, used to design Winter Guard shows. Luckily, he helped design this current season's Winter Guard show before he left. However, moving forward, we are going to need help designing their show, which is why the $1,500 is in there. And then the Winter Guard and Winter Percussion, they both of our teams are doing really, really well. We have great coaches, and as they get better and more competitive, the standards go up. So there's an additional $1,000 for props and thematic requirements that is in there. And then the last thing that is in addition from last year is, once again, as our Winter Guard has gotten better, they start looking at broader competitions. So WGI is an abbreviation for Winter Guard International, and they have regional events, one of them actually being at Salem High School. And they were hoping to do that next year, and the participation fee for that is $400. So those are the additional things. I do also, this isn't on there, but there was discussion last year about the tuba. I'm sure those of you that were at the meeting remember that. I think it's important that you guys see what you invest in. So I actually brought it home. This is the tuba that the school purchased. It is a beautiful, beautiful, I mean, of course I'm biased, but it is a beautiful instrument.
Can you play it?
Yep, absolutely. So it's
Good sport,
really,
Todd.
really amazing instrument. So thank you, because the student that's using it is just beside himself with excitement for playing that tuba. So I just wanted to be able to show you what that tuba that was causing some questions actually looks like. So
Thanks for that, Todd.
Thank you, Todd. Oh my God. Okay. Any questions for Todd? And again, just throw them out there.
Hey, I have a question on the synthesizer, and this
Sure.
is just for my lack of knowledge. What is
Yep.
the cost of replacement on that synthesizer?
the specific one we have now, we've had it for about 12 years. To replace it would be about $1,800.
And the longevity of that piece of equipment, is that another 10 years, 12 years?
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
I'm questioning whether we pay half the or a third of the cost in repairing it and keep it going or not. That's where I'm going with that.
Yeah, because we're still paying for the tuba, I didn't know if it was too much to ask for a synthesizer as well. So
Is a synthesizer a lease to own kind of thing, or is it a
no, that one is just a
1,800 you just buy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love the fact that you're expecting growth. I know it's small, but growth in the band.
Oh,
next year.
yeah. I was sharing with Dr. DeFalco and Mr. Aaronworth. Mr. Casuto and Mr. Markow are just doing an amazing job at the middle school. Numbers are looking really, really strong. The middle school jazz band has grown, as you can see, immensely. Kids really enjoy it. Mr. Casuto's having a good time with them. They practice Fridays from 4 to 5:30, which
Wow.
is true dedication. Yeah, no, things are looking really good. And in addition to that, just to explain the marching band numbers, we actually control, that's kind of a weird word to use, but we limit the size of the marching band. Our circuit has it's actually sliding the last couple of years, but has numbers that determine your division. And as it
Right.
is, we compete against schools that are between 3 and 5 times bigger than us and in our division. So we try to keep our numbers under 80. We could go bigger than that, but we found that that's kind of our sweet spot for playing at a really high level. So just, if you're wondering why the numbers kind of keep on hovering around the upper 60s, low 70s, I do think next year we might be a tiny bit bigger. But like I said, we try to stay under that number of 80 just to keep those standards high.
That's helpful to hear, Todd, to know that's
Yeah.
part of your overall strategy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
But even 70, even a few more people is significant when it gets somebody committed to being a part of something, whether it's a
Absolutely.
band or a soccer team or an e-sport. I think when you find a connection, it makes a difference.
Absolutely.
Any other questions for Mr. Schaefer?
I have a quick question, and it's not, it's actually for this year and next year. A few years ago, we had to cut the middle school band marching in our town parades. Is that back in for this year, or is that something you have not brought back to us?
That's not something I brought back. So
That would fall under a stipend
yes. Yeah.
and transportation,
Yeah.
busing. Okay.
The town parades, there is no transportation cost to that because every year Telstones donate buses to bring us to those parades. So
They used to do Bellingham too.
Yep, they used to do Bellingham, and they actually used to do Foxborough as well.
Oh, that's right. There was another one. That was my only question. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schaefer.
Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer. We're going to shift gears. Oop. Is there somebody else that had a question?
I just said thank you.
Oh, sorry, Tammy. We're going to move over to athletics. Mr. McNulty, if you'd like to get us started. I've got
Yes,
your
hi.
t-shirt up.
Hi, everybody. So I'll go over the existing materials that and kind of what to expect for next year and increases in costs, and then everything else that I don't mention will pretty much be around the same. The MIA varsity and institutional fee will go up $500 this year, but that fee will also include the Masada fee. So it's really only going up 250. And then the SMADA fee went up 300, but that also includes a new CMADA tournament fee, so it kind of evens out. And then Dual Valley conference fees going up $200. Family ID has an increase of $700. Field lining went up because more teams qualified for the state tournament, so we had to kind of line the fields for extra weeks. And the differences between a longer season than last year, where it was shorter seasons, that went up around 5,500. And then transportation expenses average around 410. Shuttle will be around 140 per day. That's only used during the fall and spring. And then looking at next year, with the new contract, you'll probably see a slight increase in coaching and athletic director stipends, but nothing too major. Also, officials per game, the fees goes up $3. Usually it's $2, but this year it's going up $3. So that'll be just a $3 per game per official fee increase. Also, the athletic trainers kind of doubled because now we have to do home and away for football, when in previous years we only had to do home games. And then all other materials, like I said, just have slight increases. Now for the new materials, you have the new uniforms for football, cheerleading, and baseball. That's part of the 4-year cycle that I proposed last year that you guys voted on. And then the football program has been in existence for a while, so there's a lot of helmets that are going to be expired or rejected over the past years that just weren't replaced, and that'll be a $15,000 fee. And then the other things are kind of minor. The hammock volleyball cart, it's kind of damaged. Also, the portable scoreboard is broken. And then the good news is that we are having boys interested in more spring sports. I sent out a spring survey. We had 81 boys respond, see what they were interested in playing, and 8 of them said they are interested in playing tennis. The max you can have for tennis is 10, so 8 is a pretty good number.
Oh.
And then boys volleyball is around 10 students out of the 81 that expressed interest, so that's also a good number. Ideally, you'd like 12 to start a program, but 10 is a solid number as well, as you only need 6 to field the team. So looking at it, you'd probably be able to field the varsity team for both of those sports next year, or possibly this spring if the money allows it. And then just the yearly cost of the program to run a program will be around $9,000. For the tennis team, that'll be travel, balls, visors, and coaches as expenses. I did bring this up that tennis is a unique sport where it's kind of on the honor system, so there's no officials. So you do save money with not having to pay officials for the tennis program. And then boys volleyball, the cost will be around $12,000, and that's mainly the difference is because of the officials, but it's the same thing: officials, travel, balls, and the varsity coach. And if we have the numbers to support JV team, it'll just go up to around 15,000 for the extra coach.
Great.
And then the forecast for the numbers, they're pretty much the same. We've been having a good turnout of middle school students, especially having middle school soccer and basketball and obviously cross country and track and field. You get an idea of who's an athlete, who wants to like participate. So numbers pretty much stay around the same. The one thing that is kind of low still is cross country for high school. I think because we have so many options for fall sports that it's strong for middle school because they don't have as many options. But once they get up to high school, they have so many options that we just don't have the numbers at the high school level for varsity athletes for cross country. And then kind of the same thing with if you go down a little bit more, obviously basketball numbers kind of stay the same, cheerleading and all that stuff. And then I expect the same kind of turnout as last year. Hopefully we get a little bit more with it not being a COVID season, but it's still kind of hard to predict with it being my second year and COVID having an impact on certain students joining and certain students not joining. But we're hoping to have like the similar numbers of last year, if not better. And then at the bottom, you can see sports that we co-op with. Last year, there was only indoor track and field. The previous year, I guess we had a small team. This year, we only had one student, one female athlete that was interested. She's doing actually pretty good this year, but she's running with Hopedale. So that's why we just have a number to support a program for ourselves. So I found a co-op with Hopedale for indoor track. And then as we've done in similar years, boys hockey, girls hockey, boys hockey obviously with Bellingham, girls hockey with Auburn. We only have one girl playing hockey, but at least we have the opportunity for her to participate in the sport that she enjoys. And then during the spring, we're looking to do the same with boys lacrosse at Nipmuc, and girls lacrosse actually had a raise in interest. There was no interest last year, but we'll continue that co-op that we had in previous years with Hopedale for girls lacrosse.
How many boys are playing hockey?
We have 5 boys
5?
from, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there's 5 or 6.
Yeah.
So that's been around the same. That's been staying the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have a question on football equipment.
Yes.
Is there a cost for recertification every year for reconditioning?
Yeah, that's under the existing cost of mandatory football pad recondition. That's part of the helmets too. But over the past few years, I guess a lot of them been rejected, and then a number of years of program after a certain year, helmets are just expired.
Except I thought we rotate through that. I think we pay thousands of dollars every year to recondition some of the helmets. I thought they were on a cycle.
They are, but after so many times, there's ones
Age out.
that you can't redo just because of the condition they're in.
Right, but they shouldn't all age out at the same time, right? If we're replacing them in a cycle.
It's by year. It's by year of manufacture.
Right.
Like hockey
So I'm
helmets
saying
are the
if we
same. They're only
replace-
good for so long.
If we replace them on a rotating cycle, would they not expire on a rotating cycle?
I guess the last 2 years they haven't been replaced, and that's part of the problem.
Also, some of
check
them.
our budget for last year. I thought that was something we did every year.
Well, some of them too, I do know, you reconditioning fees can add, like you can fix some helmets and redo them, but some of them you then just have to replace. So there are years when that's a bigger expense than others.
Helmet technology has changed considerably over the last 3 years, 5 years. And I can see it's expensive to change out helmets, but you know, I'm questioning the $15,000. How many helmets are we talking about?
Around 40.
Around 40?
Yeah.
About
So that's like half the helmets on the team.
That's
No,
pretty
that
much
would be
helmets,
all of
but
them.
sizes. You'll still have some left over because of sizes, but like not everybody has the
We
same,
have 80
same
helmets.
head size.
I would assume we do.
is that
We have
the
around 45 football players.
are those the Shutt helmets or the Rydell helmets or what?
Riddell, I believe that the quote was from.
Okay.
And it's like 2 different models. So it's one of the 2 different models that the quote was for, but they were the same price.
It should be about $350 a piece. Is that correct?
Correct.
So my next question is, and I know that how many do we have that have been rejected out of recertification?
So they're still in the process of going over the helmets right now for the end of the season. They haven't been returned yet, so I can't give you the exact number. Last year I think there was around at least between 5 and 10. I don't remember the exact number.
Now,
And
are
did
you-
we take care of those 5 or 10 that last year? You just, I'm concerned that you just said it wasn't done in the last few years.
Yeah,
But
so
we've always had the money in the budget for that purpose.
so they were reconditioned. I don't know. They
They
just
were
didn't have.
reconditioned, not replaced.
So for last year, because it was in the spring, they weren't replaced because there wasn't enough like inventory or something like that. Like there wasn't.
Yeah.
They didn't have them in stock, so they weren't replaced last year. And then
So did we not budget for that though?
I don't know what was budgeted.
All right, I'll look at my notes from last year. Thanks.
Like, are you asking if we have leftover budget? I feel like that's, yeah.
Well, we wouldn't have leftover budget. We
It
end
would
our
have went
budget,
into
so-
E&D, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I feel like the money's always there for it. So my question is, why wasn't it done? Not where is the money in that sense? We all know that at the end of the year, it goes back into E&D, but if the money is there every year
How are
for
we
that
doing?
purpose,
Right.
we shouldn't be saying it hasn't been done for a few years when we know that
So we
have
didn't
the
know
money
till
there.
the subs were rejected because it was in the spring. It's different last year. That's the reason for last year.
I'm sorry, could you say that again, please? I didn't understand you.
So obviously football is normally in the fall, and then by the time we found out that we had so many helmets rejected, it was during the summer, and there was just the shortage and all that stuff. Shortness.
We
all that
didn't
stuff.
use rejected
We weren't able to
helmets
order
this
them.
season.
No.
Any other questions?
I do have a question.
Okay.
Does adding 2 boys teams, how does that jive with Title IX?
It'll probably bring us actually closer because fall in particular, we have a lot more girls sports, so it won't impact us. Like we already have a girls tennis team. We don't have a boys tennis team, so that'll be the same. And then
We already
it'll
have.
also give us another volleyball team, which we don't have a volleyball team for guys. So right now our sports, we actually have more female sports than male sports because of those 2 sports.
Okay.
And is boys volleyball a spring sport? Did I hear you correctly?
Correct. And so is boys tennis.
And last year, I know it was a COVID year, but we did not field a JV baseball team
Correct.
or softball team.
Correct.
Are you expecting to have the numbers for
Uh,
baseball, softball, JV, varsity, and
So from the
boys
interest,
volleyball?
for the interest, it looks like the numbers are just showing enough for varsity again this year for both baseball and softball. There was around 19 for the boys team and around the same for the softball. For boys baseball was 19, and then girls softball was around the same, around 20.
I think an important point to discuss there too is that our town programs no longer exist. Like we haven't had in-town baseball for a couple years. We've done with Bellingham, and this year will again be another year that in-town softball is going away because we don't have the interest. So we're gonna probably really start to see those numbers taper down quite a bit.
And I know some of the middle school kids that were pretty good last year that played for us, they went to BB2.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that happened.
are you reaching out to the community to try and keep that going? Because if there's no community program, then these sports that we have aren't going to be participated in high school or middle school.
So I haven't reached out to the town yet, but that's something I can do.
So we're really losing our feeder program, and we're not supporting those younger kids. They're not going to, if we don't have a town program, they're not going to come into high school and say, oh, I'm going to play baseball now or softball now.
Yeah.
And we don't have a JV team to support them either. So
There's nothing for them to look to if we're not supporting
should
them.
we be focusing on saving that program before we're adding another boys option this spring?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to, I think you have to look at need and desire. I mean, it's sad that the communities aren't supporting baseball and softball at young age and building that up. I think that's true of soccer. I think that's, but if you don't get the parent support to do those programs, none of those are town per se programs. They might have a kind of a community rec person who tries to help out leagues, but I think that's going down quite a bit. And I think there are some things that we can do and perhaps should do in our communities to foster more of that. But one is to encourage parents to get their children to do that and for them to get involved. And if any of us, and I know all of us have been following, the social media aspect of the world these days, it's really hard to be a parent volunteer and do that. So I think if you have, I know it feels like it switches every year or every week, but if you have, eight young men who would like to play on a tennis team who aren't going to change that and play baseball, I think it's important to support that. Again, I'll go back to my statement of we need to find ways to keep people connected to their school. And if that's, more of that and less of something else, maybe we can't do them all. I understand that, but I think we need to listen to the students and the surveys they're taking to see what their interest is.
And it's just in our school that baseball numbers are going down. It's every school, like
Yeah.
even bigger schools, they have freshman programs now. They just have JV and varsity. So
It's even colleges.
Unfortunately, baseball in general is kind of a dying sport with the younger population, that they're not as interested in baseball as they probably were when I was my age and stuff like that.
And I think
So my question, oh, sorry, go ahead, Tara.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, on the existing staff, you have varsity JV, you have 9 JV coaches. So this is for next year's, are you taking the JV baseball and softball out of that count, or are you still leaving them in the budget?
They're still in that count just in case if there's uptick because of COVID. I really couldn't predict it, so I didn't want to take it out just in case. I feel like it would be better to over budget than under budget in that aspect.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I do know that there's other schools that are bringing back other sports, and I don't. I think I don't know what the answer is, but to be able to help students understand that they do have more options, like for example, Bellingham just added wrestling.
Sorry.
And they have a huge program. They had enough interest and they're doing pretty well for a first year program. It'd be interesting to see what else people are doing and how we help build some of those. Because to Jane's point, I think, the bigger problems in town with baseball and softball and soccer are ultimately it comes down to parent help. Because the kids will play, they will sign up, they will play. But I know firsthand the softball program has been the same like 5 or 6, 7 adults doing it for years, and their kids have aged out of the program by a couple years now. And they held on as long as they could. But you know, as you've also said on social media, you know, we have a lot of parents that instead of stepping up to help are trying to point out everything that's going wrong. So those programs are failing, unfortunately. And we're going to see that really start to trickle down in our schools. And that's pretty scary.
So we saw the same with the baseball program in town. Same thing. It was,
Exactly.
you know, the kids aged out. They stuck with it for a long time. But as far as that goes, in a way, I feel like these kids find, like my son goes to Nipmuc, you know, kids go to Bellingham. And if they're part of BMR and they want to play baseball, they're going to want to play on the team. I mean, I guess our other concern is that they would leave BMR and school choice based on the sports.
Right.
You know, and like you said, the BBT kids. So
that's a very real possibility. And I feel like that's where we need to kind of figure out how we bridge that gap between us in the middle school and even down to the elementary programs to build those programs up and make sure we're going to have strong kids coming through. Because, you know, I look at these numbers and I think why spend $6,400 on football uniforms if that number is going to dwindle? Why spend $2,800 on baseball if we're only going to get a year, maybe 2 out of them because we don't have enough kids to play? We need to make sure that we have full teams for those. And I'm not suggesting we just don't buy uniforms. I'm saying our interest should be in building some of these athletic programs.
Yep.
I agree.
Robert, you said you surveyed I heard you reference particularly the boys.
81.
There were 81 boys that are interested in spring sports.
No,
No, he surveyed
participated in the
81.
survey. Yeah, the participate in the survey. I'll try to pull up on
81 participated in the survey. Okay, I see.
That
And
was-
how many students on average are playing each season? Are participating in a sport?
If you go up to the participation numbers, like for the winter, I believe there's like 30 there's around 40. So like all the teams are maxed out for basketball, boys basketball. Girls is a little bit less. It's around 25 this year.
Girls basketball is less than 25 between the varsity and the JV teams. I
Yeah,
think
but
And the middle school, Carrie?
there
it
is
says
no
middle
middle school.
there's no
girls
middle
team.
school. With girls quitting, like, yeah, some girls quitting.
Between
Say that they were.
grades 7 through 12, there's 16 players, maybe.
Yeah, I can look at the exact number for that too. But yeah, it's low.
Is it possible to survey all of the students, grades 6 through 12, and find out like, what sports they would play in the next calendar year, the next academic year?
Is that what this survey does, but only 81 returned it?
Well, that's what I did for the spring. The spring was
Yeah.
the spring was sent out to middle school parents and high school students. The spring one, and I think there's probably around 200 male students, so only 80 did it. Only 80 filled out the form.
I feel like it'd be interesting to know if there's something that's holding some of these kids back from playing.
Yeah.
You know, like would you participate in a sport or activity? You know, what's holding you back? How do we do that? Because looking at some of these numbers, I mean, how do we have 14 girls playing varsity soccer? Soccer is a huge sport and it really sucks to see those numbers dwindle. And if we go any lower than that, I don't think we could safely field a team.
Like the girls soccer number, that's 16, that is girls grades 7 through 12.
Yep.
On one team.
Yeah.
So that's 7th graders playing against full-on varsity teams that are 11th and 12th grade.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking when we played the Millbury, when they went over the roster, like half the girls on our roster were 8th graders or 7th graders, which I guess is good for the future, but it's not
Yeah,
good.
we've got a great community soccer program. Why are we not getting these kids in middle school and high school to play?
I know over the past few years, we've lost a lot of soccer players overall to BVT. Those two sports seem to be so greatly affected by kids going to BVT.
I think it's just probably the same case for baseball too, because I know some, we're just watching the game. Some of the 8th graders that played last year, they no longer go to school.
Do they? Okay.
That were good. Well, a couple of them stayed, but like half, I would say half stayed, half went somewhere else.
Tim, we had a conversation with some parents a couple of years ago when we were looking at what is the right structure of the teams. And we asked that exact question, you know, if we have such strong town teams, what happens at the secondary school level? And what was shared with us from our families is that a lot of the students end up playing on traveling teams or different types of teams, and they end up on a couple of them. So they, you know, they actually don't have time to do the school soccer team because they're doing a couple of other like town or regional travel teams. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but that was what was shared with us at the time.
May I ask a clarifying question, Robert, on the co-ops?
Yes.
Are we participating in a swim co-op this year? I thought I remember that happening.
Yeah, there was. I didn't add that, but yeah, there was a
So this should include swim. And
Yeah.
that's with what, Whitensville or
Grafton.
Northbridge or something? Oh, Grafton. Thank you.
So yeah, looking at the survey, there was 81 responses. 27 male students weren't interested. 19 were interested in baseball, 8 in tennis, 10 in boys volleyball, 5 in the co-op for lacrosse, and then 12 for track and field. And then for the female student athletes, we had 90 responses. 37 were not interested in sports, which is 41%. 22 was softball, 6 in tennis, 5 in lacrosse, and then 20 for track and field.
Did you say that went to middle school and high school or just high school?
They went to middle school and high school.
Was there any talk about a middle school baseball team, boys baseball team instead of JV, or is that another conversation?
So I was talking to the principal about that actually today. It's the interest is, so last year we had middle school kids playing varsity because the numbers were so low. If that case is where we can field a varsity team with all high school kids and none of the high school kids being left off of the team, then the route would probably go to having a middle school team because it would just make more sense to have middle school kids that are on the team play against middle school kids instead of them playing JV games when they're all middle school kids. So if the numbers support 2 teams, my guess is that we'll be able to field a varsity team and a middle school team this year.
But that's this year too, not but you're not asking, you're not looking to change that for next year. So you'd be looking to change this year's current budget from a JV team to a middle school team?
Yeah. The only problem with that is that the UNA contract only has JV baseball and varsity baseball, so I don't know how that works with a middle school because there's no middle school coach like there is in soccer or other sports that we have middle school teams.
I was just wondering if that conversation made it to school yet, actually, but.
Robert, do you want to shift over to your, I think I have. To the uniform replacement cycle?
Yeah, so this was what was done this year. Girls basketball is actually in the process because it was a problem with the inventory with Under Armour. And everything else was ordered. At below, that would be the estimated costs for new uniforms for tennis and volleyball, which obviously we didn't have a program, so those would be the new uniforms. That would be around the cost that we would need for new uniforms, and that's in those sports. And then next year, as mentioned, the budget, that's what the numbers will look like for football, cheerleading, baseball, which will be next year's.
Did you just say we do not have a girls' middle school team? Did someone just say that? A basketball?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
somebody told me that.
Did
didn't
we
have
buy
the-
those? Did we buy those uniforms this year?
No, not yet.
So do we end up being between a kind of a rock and a hard place? Because if we have a uniform replacement schedule and we replace the uniforms, or we don't replace the uniforms because we don't have a team, but then in the next year we have a team, so we have to replace those uniforms, and now they're not on the schedule. I mean, are there certain sports that we should be committed to supporting? And I mean, obviously you wouldn't replace them if they were brand new and they've never been worn after 3 years or whenever they come up again, but I don't know. I worry that it took us a very long time to get this schedule in place. And if we have the money in this year's budget to replace certain things, should we do it or not do it? I don't know. That's just
In my opinion, those uniforms
Catch-22.
should have been ready for the last week of November. We had them in the budget. That budget started July 1st. Those girls' basketball uniforms should have been, we didn't know we weren't going to field a team.
Right.
And those uniforms should have been purchased and ready for the first day of tryouts. So did our field hockey teams have their new uniforms for this fall?
Field
Yeah.
hockey received their uniforms about halfway through the season. Girls and boys soccer received uniforms to start the seasons.
Because we budget, we knew, we approved our budget, it was approved town meeting. Those purchases should have been in process before the season started. And we didn't know we weren't going to have a girls basketball team. So I get what you're saying, Jane.
Yeah,
but
no,
we've never not had our girls basketball team.
right. I
middle
think
school
we're
team
agreeing
before.
with each other. If they're on the
Yeah,
replacement
definitely.
schedule, they should be replaced. And
Did the boys
that-
middle school team get their new uniforms?
Yes.
The boys middle school received uniforms, but none of the girls winter program received theirs.
Yes.
Why?
Why?
I
The
want to
girls
know
varsity
why.
didn't either?
Was that?
None of the
It's the
girls
girl-
teams,
Jason, can
varsity
you go-
and JV?
Jason, can you go down to this year?
So I
Go
did.
back down.
Second, people are sounds like we're shouting here. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. What are we looking for, Jane?
So I'm trying to see what the replacement was supposed to be for this academic year.
Okay.
What was supposed to be
Pull that up.
replaced
The uniform cycle.
Yeah.
Let me scroll to that.
before we all get out of. So in this academic year, we should have budgeted, and I believe we did, to replace field hockey, girls basketball, all three girls basketball, and boys middle school. And I'm hearing people say that boys soccer got new uniforms.
Girls and boys soccer got new uniforms.
That's
And
because they were
girls
supposed to
soccer
be
is
in the-
not on the list, and boys soccer is not on the list.
They were ordered from last year because so if you go down to the bottom, that was supposed to be last year, so they were never ordered last year when I was hired. So it was like I was hired in September and there was no new uniforms. So by the time they would have got it, the season would have been over because of the COVID shortened season. So we ordered them for this year for the soccer uniforms.
Okay. So it seems to me that of looking at this list that's on the screen right now, field hockey varsity, field hockey JV, all the girls basketball teams, and only the boys middle school, not the varsity, have those uniforms been ordered to be replaced this year?
Yeah, so the girls' basketball uniforms are in the process of being processed and shipped to us. I admit that I did that process too late, so I learned from that. So I'm already starting the next year's cycle for the uniform cycle for that year, for next year.
Okay. But field hockey got new uniforms,
Yes, I have new uniforms.
and the boys middle school basketball team got new uniforms.
Yes, they were not Under Armour, so they didn't have the delay that the girls' basketball uniforms have.
Mm.
Football got uniforms too, right?
What's that?
Was there something for football getting uniforms as well?
That's next year. That's next year.
That's next year.
So I'm in the process of ordering those ones right now, so that the same mistake with girls basketball doesn't happen.
I thought we just approved that on our last set of warrants. Something for football uniforms.
I didn't know. I didn't.
I have the
ask.
warrants right here. Tara, I can grab them if you're interested in looking at that.
Yeah, I'll double check.
Yeah, I have them right. I've got them right by.
It might have been the girls basketball uniforms.
No, it was definitely boys football. It was a reimbursement.
Well, it could have been cleaning the uniforms, maybe cleaning the uniforms.
I'll check that, Tara. I can share that.
I'm sorry, never mind. It was basketball. Sorry.
Alright.
So the boys basketball.
It was
Those are
probably
good.
basketball. Yeah.
So I do have a question. I'm pretty sure that it wasn't last year, but the year before, softball didn't happen.
Yeah, all the spring sports didn't happen the year before.
So do we extend their uniforms out a year? Because they did get new uniforms that year and did not wear them.
So that's, Amanda, that was the point I was trying to make. It was like, what is the most critical? Because we can't do well, heck, they didn't wear them for a year. So we're not gonna, they only got 2 years of use, but we're not gonna replace them. We'll replace them after they get 3 years of use, but then when they get 3 years of use is the year we have to do the football. So now we can't afford to do the softball. So, we either have a schedule or we don't have a schedule. And if we have a schedule, we have to stick to it, and we have to, commit to what are the teams. If we add a new team, like a tennis or a volleyball, we need to get a new uniform. It's a new cost. It has to get filtered into the schedule as a new cost. But these recurring, I don't know. I have to imagine that uniforms haven't changed that much, other than the basketball shorts got longer. Although now I understand they're getting shorter again.
They're getting shorter, yeah.
But people are wearing compression this or compression that, and things change, and part of being on a team, and this is not any kind of fashion statement at all, but part of being on a team is having that new, fresh, exciting look. And so if your uniform is only 2 years old, but the other team's uniform is 3 years old or whatever, I think if we have a schedule, we have to stick to the schedule. And if we've budgeted and we told our communities and anybody who looks at our budget that, this year we're replacing these things, then that's what we need to do. If in fact, we don't ever have we don't have a girls middle school basketball team for 3 years, then when it comes up again, we have to decide if that's still a priority to have that sport and take it off the list completely until it generates new interest again. But if we're going to have a replacement, we're going to have a replacement. I don't know. I just feel like you got to do it.
Jane, I guess I just wonder, I don't agree. When our numbers are so inconsistent, the cycle doesn't work. I mean,
I agree with that.
And I get it, because it's like twofold, right? It's not just making sure that everybody gets regularly updated uniforms. It's also spreading the costs out. But we need to figure out a way to get consistent numbers and consistent teams, because if we add a sport and buy uniforms and add them to the cycle, and in 2 years nobody wants to play boys volleyball, like it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So
right, I'm looking at like JV baseball. I'm having a tough time looking at how are we going to buy uniforms for a team that we haven't fielded.
Well, yeah, but that's when I would say, so if that was the year that came up and there hasn't been a team, so it's due this next year. So JV baseball is due next year. If we didn't have a team last year, we don't have a team this year, we're likely not to have a team next year. No, but again, I think as a group, I don't know. I think athletics, it needs to be part of the vision statement and what is it we're trying to foster? Are we trying to foster something that gives everybody a chance to participate in something they love? And, even if it's one swimmer at Grafton or one hockey player at wherever they play, is that what's important to us? Or is it important to have our teams with our commitment, wearing our uniforms? And then in which case, which should those core teams be? How do we foster them and how to, so there's some real basic mission issues here. Like there's some real, this isn't just like, what do we feel like today? This is what is the purpose of high school athletics? How does it fit into the mission and purpose of the district? And how do we foster that ability? I mean, if we don't do that, then we don't have a place for esports. We don't have a place for cheer. We don't have a place for a lot of these things if we don't figure out how they fit.
I completely agree that I mean, that's always been my biggest part, is that I think we need to do more for athletics. And I think it's a huge part of our kids' enrichment. And we do need to pay attention to that. I do come from another system where, JV got hand-me-down uniforms from varsity. And that was how a lot of schools save money. I mean, 3 years ago, our softball girls were wearing old boys' baseball uniforms. So yeah, I'm all for it. I mean, my kids don't play those. My kid plays a sport that I have to purchase all of his equipment for, with the exception of one jersey. So I get that. I don't want to ask our townspeople for money that perhaps we don't have to spend, because after 2 weeks of budgeting, we clearly have places for that to go. And we need to be doing a much better job of building these sports programs as well. I'm just not sure that buying uniforms for teams we can't field is the answer.
No, I agree. Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said or Sarah said. I'm trying to show you there's a catch-22 here.
Sure.
Because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If you don't buy them, and 3 years from now, it's like, then you need them because you've got 20 kids who want to play JV baseball, but the JV baseball uniform doesn't come in for 4, it's like, then you're always
Right.
adding the new, and then we go back to what we had before. Each fall is here's the uniforms we absolutely need to replace next year. And then we had thousands of dollars in uniforms we couldn't afford.
It's also kind of hard because you can't say we're gonna have 15 kids for varsity baseball and only order 15 baseball jerseys, because not every jersey is gonna fit the same.
Right.
You're gonna have 15 kids one year that are gonna be the same as 2 years down the road. So that's all the tricky part. So even with these numbers, they're on the low side. So like if I'm wearing 30 baseball jerseys, we have 19 kids interested this year. They're gonna be different sizes, so I can't order just 19 jerseys
Right.
because they're not gonna fit. There's gonna be some too small or too big.
I think it needs more discussion.
I agree with that, Jane.
Because I think last time the boys baseball, the booster clubs bought those uniforms,
Yeah,
or at least the JV ones. Right? I forget, the years go by. But
I think the
booster
last ones
club
were
bought
purchased
them.
from the donation from the memorial ride. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that was how the last ones were purchased.
Yeah, and I think that was the boosters, the Memorial Ride kind of did it with.
Anything else on athletics?
Okay,
All right.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Mark.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Saltzman, information technology.
Thanks very much. I just wanted, before I get into the chart here, I just wanted to thank the committee for the financial support over the past couple of years. We've really had a lot that we've been able to do. And I'm just going to go over a little bit of that before I get into the chart. As I told you last time, our server infrastructure has been completely revamped. 2/3 of our staff have new higher-end Chromebooks. 2/3 of our teachers are receiving new large panel touchscreen displays, and those are going to replace aging projectors and smartboards. All of our students are one-to-one on Chromebooks now, and we're going to have a solid supply of those Chromebooks until the 23-24 through the 23-24 school year. And we've really just made significant changes. The district's on real solid footing, and we're heading in a great direction. So thanks for your leadership on that front. And with that said, there aren't huge changes that are going to be happening next year because of everything that we've done in the past couple of years, and especially this past year. So moving to that chart, we've taken care of all of our leases on Chromebooks. Those are all gone. And with the COVID grants, we have purchased 150 Chromebooks already. And then right before the grant expires, which would be on July 1st, we're going to order 819 additional Chromebooks.
Wow.
Yeah, that's gonna be great. Then we've already purchased the staff Chromebooks. We purchased 195. Jason, can you just scroll down a hair? 198. Those have already been purchased and have been pushed out. The ViewSonics that I alluded to, those have already been purchased, and we've pushed out about 1/3 of those. And then with respect to Renaissance Learning, just a change there, we're not going to be using Mion, and we did get a small change, a savings in the budget number. So then moving over to the new column, we have DocuSign, which is going to help digitize our HR onboarding process. And we also can use that for staff policy agreements, things like that. And we expect to use it for student registration as well. We have a 1-year agreement that we bought into for a new antivirus service that also has anti-malware and anti-ransomware functionality, which I think is important. And then we will be purchasing and setting up a new library circulation software. And that's just because our existing software is incredibly old and will not work with the new systems that we have. And that's really it as far as changes go. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Dan? I'm still into the card
Yeah.
catalog, but any questions for Dan? Go ahead, Tim.
Dan, on the antivirus, does that cover all platforms, all operating systems?
I mean, it's just for Windows, and that's really the only thing that we're concerned about. The Google machines, the Chromebooks we're not worried about ransomware and things like that in the cloud for Google. So we don't use any Macs in any great numbers. Now, that said, we do have that Mac lab. I don't believe that the software covers Macs, but it might, and I will look into that.
I think we're equally safe there with the Macs, but there's always that possibility.
Yep, no, that's a good point. That actually reminds me, Jane, you had mentioned the
iTouch. I was gonna get there. The iTouch and the I forget what the other one was called.
It was a tablet. I think
creative Wacom.
Wacom.
I can't even say it, Dan. That's how confused.
It's a Wacom tablet, and it's actually the old school word for tablet, where it's not like an iPad or an Android tablet. It's really a big giant trackpad, and you use a pen, and it allows you to sort of draw. So that can't be replaced by anything that we have. The iPads, it's possible that they could get away with something else, but generally speaking, iPads are not interchangeable with a Chromebook. What we might be able to do is in that grant where we have 819 Chromebooks that are about to be purchased, we may be able to substitute some iPads. That's possible.
Yeah, I think that was my thing, not to look what we already have that we can use, but with all these purchases, like if somebody's trying to purchase 3 iPads, but we're purchasing 800 and 198 something or 819, amazing something. Like, I think there's more buying. I guess I was saying, do we have any buying power to get these cheaper than whatever was listed on the?
So we've already applied for the grant and we're approved. That said, there's a mechanism to make changes. I'm not sure if we've passed the date to do that, but I can check on that. And it is
Okay.
possible that we could get a $400 discount on the iPads. The iPad Airs that I think I saw in Jill's
Yep.
presentation are a little
Yep.
bit more than that. They're probably $600.
Okay.
But that said, it may be possible to swap those out.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will say that I'm very happy to see that the new library circulation software will work virtually.
Yeah,
So
and we may actually just have it hosted, so it might not even be on our infrastructure at all.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But either way, it'll either be virtual or it'll be hosted online.
And that will run with a barcode scanner at each location.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And every
That
school,
is for
right?
every building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very cool. Card catalog, telling you.
So I just had a quick question on the DocuSign. It says the student registration. Are we speaking of the yearly packet that comes home for parents to renew and kindergarten registration, or are we speaking of one or the other?
Well, I think it's for the student registrations, like new students to the district, but that said, it could be used for any type of form that people have to fill out. We would just have to digitize it and set it up properly.
And we did discuss that.
We did ask that
the
we.
year,
approve
yeah,
that.
packets all be digitized so parent could do that electronically, excuse me.
And think
I'd
of
like
the
to see
paper
that get
cost savings.
multi-use paper.
Okay. Any other questions for Dan? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks very
Thank
much.
you for the great work. It's been amazing.
You're welcome.
Easy. It's been easy, Dan. You've made it easy. Not for the people that work with you, but for us.
Thanks very much.
And we're going to shift to special education and ELL with Jill. Jill?
So I'm just going to start off with our English language learner program. Just to give you a little update, we actually, from the time I wrote this to today when I checked, we actually have 30 English language learners in the district. And that ranges, even though our pre-Ks aren't assessed, we always take a look at those kiddos too and make sure we're addressing their needs as early as possible. We have 37, which are considered former English language learners. And for those kids, just so you get an idea, after they reach their exit criteria, they take access every year. Once they reach that criteria, we actually have to monitor them for 4 years. So our teachers are also involved in that monitoring, checking on how they're doing with the teachers, pushing in. We do have 2 full-time teachers this year, and there are no new asks. And I did list the programs that we're currently using for our students. And again, we just continue to review the data, how the kids are doing, and if we need to adjust. But there is nothing new for our English language learner program. For special education, and again, this number changes on a daily basis, but we have approximately 304 students in the district who are on IEPs. That's pre-K through 12 plus. It's approximately 19% of our students. And again, I did list for you our continuum of services. We have the full inclusion, partial inclusion, substantially separate, and all of our specialized programs that are listed underneath. They're all what we have this year will continue next year. There are no new asks this year for that in this column.
Jill, you're batting 1,000 so far.
No. The next one I just listed for you all the programs that we have used and the ones that we're trialing. One of the programs that we're trialing this year is the SMARTS program, and I'm just getting data and feedback from our middle school and high school folks right now if we're going to continue with that or something new, but there would be no new money for that, whatever we do. And right now, the only thing we're looking at is our Wonder Works, which is kind of it's the sister program to Wonders. We're very excited about that. We're going to be trialing that, and that would not be a new ask. That would be grant funded So there would be nothing new that I'd be asking for next year. And just with our EL program, all our programs in special education, we're just going to continue to look at those programs, track student data, and make our changes as needed. So there are no new asks for programs. I also listed for you all the staff that we currently have in special ed. On the left-hand side, there are 2 items that are italicized. Those are not new asks, those are current staff, but I just wanted to note that our grade 2, because they're moving to Millville next year, the special ed staff that is connected to grade 2 will be moving over with them. So it's current staff that will be moving. And the same thing, it says the PLC, that's our pragmatics learning classroom. That classroom and its staff, because the students are getting older, will be moving over to the AFM JFK complex. So there are no new asks for that staffing. I did list all the other support staff that we have in the district, as well as our teaching staff, the support staff, our paraprofessional staffs per building, as well as our contracted services. The new asks that are for next year is, right now we do have a teacher of the deaf that we brought on for last year. We are looking, right now she's a 0.5, and we are looking to increase her to 0.8. Our student population, their needs for students with hearing impairments, hearing devices that they're using is increasing. The majority of our students are younger students, pre-K through 3, but we do have some students at the middle school. So this teacher right now is part of her job. She is currently addressing students, the majority at MES. We have a student or 2 at the complex and 1 student at the middle school. And she provides direct services, both in and out of the classroom, consultation services, observation. She also completes evaluation. So that is our one ask for our teacher of the deaf. We've in the past have contracted for the teacher contracted services, but where we have our own now, I'm trying to keep up with our services that we need and not have to contract out anymore. And the only other ask I have is, we do have a student who will be arriving here in district shortly, who is considered medically fragile and may require, depending on after the full assessment is done, but we do have a student who may be entering who's going to require a nurse.
When you say shortly, this year or for next year?
It could be.
Like they might be coming now?
Yes, it all, it depends on the student's ability to come
Right.
to school. It's through kind of a new EI, so it could.
Okay. Okay.
And you'll notice on the bottom, we already do have contracted services for a nurse, for another medically fragile student, and we also still contract for a teacher of the visually impaired and an orientation and mobility specialist. But those numbers of students and their needs are small. That would make no sense to hire our own right now. It would just be more fiscally responsible to contract those services.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Jason, you can go on to the next section. And then we have our out of district. So we currently are looking at 25 students out of district. And again, our programs are similar. They include, we use 3 collaborative schools. We have a public, which they also have a public day program. We currently have students in 7 different private day, and we do have 2 residential. And I thought it was important to note that although our numbers have increased by 3, there are 3 that were either placed by other districts because they have the programmatic responsibility, but fiscally, we are still responsible. So we did have 3 students. One was placed through a foster situation where we are the fiscally responsible district. One was a shared residency, so we are sharing that fiscal responsibility. And another one was for a school choice placement. So we had 3 unknowns that took place this year. And on the right-hand side, the only thing is we always need to take a look at our tuition does increase a little bit every year, as well as the transportation costs. We continue to look at our programs in districts to build the capacity, and we potentially have. We were able to return a student last year, which is great. He's doing a really nice job, and we're always looking at the students that were there. So we potentially could have 2 students who will be returning to district last year. We already start those transitions talks. We do continue to budget though for those students, because when they do return, when they do come back, they could require some additional supports, in district that might not be in place right now. But overall, our goal is to bring them back to district.
And other than that, there are no significant asks for out of district.
Wow. Any questions for Jill? See what happens when you say no new, no new, no new, no question.
There are a couple of new, but
Well,
those
yeah,
are
but
very,
can't do anything about some of those.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Jill.
Thank you.
So I am up next, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the positions and materials we've already had the opportunity to speak about, but specifically around the work of teaching and learning, and some of the priority positions that we've laid out from our December school committee meeting, where we started doing some forecasting of kind of staff and stuff, if you will, that we discussed we may need. The first piece is the K-12 math curriculum, and we heard a bit about this from our math committee last time we met, which was last Thursday. And these numbers are still a work in progress. And if you recall, we have looked at some forecasting where we are hopeful that we can purchase the math program this year for next year. So we are waiting to see how the numbers continue through late winter and into early spring. But this may not need to be part of our actual budget for next fiscal year, which would be really good news for us.
Mm-hmm.
The second item is the shared position with Bellingham around the teaching and learning and the support work, specifically around curriculum and instruction that we're looking to do. I know we've talked a little bit about that. So that is still on the request, at the request for fiscal 23. Two positions that are not new positions, but as we've talked about the need to back positions out of our ESSER funds and looking forward into next year so that we don't have a hard stop to our grant funds and then all of this goes away, or we have a incredibly large ask all at once to our communities. We are looking to transfer our 2 STEM teachers out of ESSER and into our local budget for next year. And that comes at a tune of about $111,000. Those are not new positions in the idea that we aren't, they're new programs and new people to the system. We have the programs, we have the people that are already here, we're just moving the funding stream. The other item just under that is for our athletic director. That was at the request of a school committee member. So we included that in the budget as well at an estimate of $75,000 for a full-time AD. And then lastly, our permanent substitutes. And these are individuals that come each day and they don't need to get called in, but they just show up every day and they're assigned accordingly, increasing the rate to $102 a day at 180 days times 4 individual permanent substitutes at $18,360 per sub, would total $73,440 for all 4 of them. So that was just a brief overview. Again,
So they don't, Jason, they don't get benefits, or is benefits assumed in other places?
No, they do not have, they have health insurance benefits, if that's what you mean by benefits, Jane.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They do.
But that's already included in the health insurance
Cost
budget.
would be factored into our benefits
Yeah. Okay.
estimate, not in their salary line. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, the 73 obviously does not include the benefit total. That would be in a different line.
Yeah. Okay.
And we are still working with the math curriculum vendors on pricing, like I said. So we're looking at a few different options that we would bring before the committee by, or at the next workshop, which would be February 3rd.
Any questions for Jason?
Oh, sorry, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Earlier during Jill's presentation, she talked about PD to roll out the math program. Do we have any PD built into the purchase of the math program, or is it all on, or do we have to pay for it all?
So right now, in the numbers you're looking at, there is staff development, both virtual and in person, for both programs, and it totals currently $9,400. Whether or not we would want to move forward with that is a different, different issue. But it does include professional development at $9,400.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And just as a quick aside, like we did with the literacy and STEM scopes at the elementary level, we started that onboarding and training the spring before we actually launched. So that teachers had the time they needed to do all the professional development and additional summer training to be ready for September or August. So we would hope to follow the same process.
I should have asked this of Jill, but where do we stand with our Wilson trained? I know we trained a bunch. We were able to train more. Do we still have those numbers in the district?
So we do still have teachers who are trained in Wilson. I believe we have 6 or 7.
Oh, great.
We also, during that year, just so you know, we had budgeted and put in for Wilson to provide an opportunity for group training, which we still got credit because COVID kind of, you know what I mean, shut it down. We're going to still be moving forward with that. And we've already been in talk. We have a few teachers who would like to be able to do the first 3 sessions to become familiar with it. And it's something that we already have credited for. And they said they can be very flexible with the funds that, we already put in. So, but yes, we do have
great
teachers and our remedial specialists as well who are certified.
Thank you. Anyone else for Jason? Okay, thank you.
All right, and we're going to shift over to a conversation on pre-K tuition. And I'm going to actually hand this over to Matt, but in your packet, there was a table that outlines the cost of our preschool program, the daily rate, monthly rate and daily rate, excuse me, in comparison to other school districts in our region. And so, Matt, I'm going to stop sharing, and why don't you walk us through that?
Sure. So the dollar per day column that you can see all the way to the right is really just, it should be a dollars per day per month. So that's for each day per month, the average cost of each individual day for the month. So you can see our rate is for 5 days at a monthly rate of $300. And we have that averages to about $60 per day per month, which is the lowest on this comparison list by $6 a day. And even that is, again, relatively low compared to the other towns that are on the list. We do a very good job of making collections on our preschool payments. Stephanie, our new business assistant, has been very diligent, follows up with all of our families. We certainly make exceptions as needed and potentially work out payment plans if that's required, but all of our families have been very good about paying for the services that they receive. And we are bringing this forward as a question for the committee as to whether or not they would be interested in raising the rates. We have not done so in quite some time. And as you can see, we are, I wouldn't say significantly, but we are a lower cost than other towns in the same region. My recommendation would be to move toward a $70 per day per month rate, which would raise the monthly rate to $350 per month. But I also could understand if the committee feels that is too aggressive of a rate increase for the community. That's certainly up to the discretion of the committee.
So is our preschool full at the current rate?
we still have room, but we always have room because we have to save slots for our students who are coming in through EI. But I wouldn't say we're totally full right now, but our classrooms cannot exceed 15. And I know Christina said we have classrooms that range from like 10 to I think 13 or 14 right now.
Okay,
Slots do have to be saved because we have to have a certain ratio.
sure. So would the expectation be, I guess, two questions, Matt. When was the last time we did raise it? And would the expectation be that we could probably maintain those, looking at the numbers that are potential, we could somewhat maintain those numbers even at a higher rate?
I don't believe that we would lose any of the numbers, or if so, any significant amount of numbers by raising the rate. We've not raised the rate in the 4 years that I've been here.
Okay.
I would have to, I'd have to go back and do some digging to find when the actual last time we raised the rate was. But I don't believe we've raised the rate in over 5 or 6 years minimum.
Okay.
Can I get clarification
Yeah.
on the math? It's saying 60 a day, but is that for the 5-day program? Because
Correct. So I'm saying it's $60 per day per month. So each day you go for the month, it comes out to about $60 per day. So I broke it down that way so we could compare it to other districts that don't offer the same number of days. So I did it on more of a daily basis, because you can see the Northbridge program is also $300 a month, but they only go for 4 days.
right, but that's a month. That's a week. $300 is a week if it's $60 a day.
So in a month, if you go once a week,
It's per,
you're
yeah.
paying $60. You know what I
I
mean?
only go 5 times a month.
There are
Don't we
some-
have a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5-day program?
We have all of those programs, correct? But in
But the
order,
person going 5 days is paying $300 a week?
they're paying $300 a month. And it's, so as I said, that last column is missing a slash. It's dollars per day per month. It's for the entire month. So each day of the week that they go per month is $60. So if they went to a 2-day-a-week program for a month, it would be $120. If they went to a 3-day-a-week program each month, it would be the 180. So I'm saying our kids go 5 days a week, and for a month, it's $300. So that's $60 per day per month.
So my question here is, and I'm missing some numbers, because I'm thinking that, are they going to for 20 days a month, as in 5 days a week for 4 weeks straight? Or
They
is it
should
just,
be.
I'm sorry?
That's the base. That is the basis for the calculation. Yes.
Okay.
Isn't that
Can you say that
$15 a
again?
day? I can't
Can you
follow
say
the
that
math.
again,
I'm
Tim?
sorry.
Yeah.
The way Tim just explained it, could you say that again?
Okay. The kids are going to school 5 days a week. And if there's 4 weeks in a month, that's 20 days.
So it's
So
$15.
instead of- it comes out to $15 a day, not 60.
But what I think Matt was saying is $60 is like you could times that by the number of days they go to a week, and that's how he calculated out the monthly rate. So if I had a child that went to preschool 1 day a week per month, like every week, every day of a week they went just once, it would calculate out to I'm paying $60 for that. Do you know what I mean? For that overall.
So we can't ever tell the families that we're charging them by the day. We have to charge them a monthly rate, because then when they miss a Monday, they expect that they're going to be reimbursed for a Monday. Or then when there's so these rates are exactly that. They're monthly rates based on the number of days per week. So in general, if a student attends 5 days per week. Their monthly rate is $300.
I think overall, I'm on board with a slight increase, but I still can't follow that math. Sorry.
Sarah, you're saying it's $15 a day. It's not.
$15 a day.
I know exactly.
I do understand it's.
Sorry, I apologize that it's just not clicking for me.
I'm on board with an increase, but I'm thinking about the 49% of our school system that's on free and reduced lunch.
Yep.
And I'm also
Preschool,
thinking,
the preschool is not part of that though. They pay for preschool because it's not mandatory. We're not giving that out, correct, Matt?
That is correct.
how
But that brings up a bigger equity issue
Yeah.
because those students desperately need preschool and their parents can't afford it, so they can't come.
Yeah.
Which is why we're
Any-
depending on the president to implement preschool as part of public education.
Are there any preschoolers that do get like state assistance to pay for our program?
Any student with special needs that attends
Special
these programs based
Special
on
needs.
an IEP,
Mhm.
they do not pay for the services.
Okay.
There are some students that only require certain services as outlined in their IEP. And if they attend the full preschool program, they receive those services for free, but then they if they come for additional days or additional time, then they still pay. They pay that difference.
okay, so in me asking my question here, and you may not be able to give me the numbers, how many families do we have to track down to pay the bill every month?
I don't have that offhand, but I can certainly get that number for you.
My rationale here is that if we've got 40 kids and we're chasing down 20 parents or 20 families to pay this $300 fee, then while we may be less expensive than others, and granted, this is a lot less than childcare at $1,500 a month or $1,800 a month, can they viably afford it? And then we get back to the equity issue.
And it's not full day, right? There's some that are full day, but for the most part, it's like a half day program, correct?
Yeah.
For tuition students, it's half day.
Okay.
Have our enrollment numbers been the same year over year? Where are we?
So what's hard is COVID has definitely limited. Some families have chosen to keep their children at home, but our numbers this year did increase because we added the extra preschool. So we're hopeful that with things dying down, we're going to have more kiddos, you know what I mean, who are interested in coming in. But we did have a decline the original, year, everything was going on. But this year our numbers are they're starting to climb a little bit.
I don't know, maybe this isn't the year to raise. Was this the first year we did the added, right? We added this year spaces, extra
Yes,
classrooms.
because of that,
Yep.
yes, we were actually able to accommodate every single family who wanted preschool, even those who decided, you know what, after 2 months in, we'd like, the child to come. We were able to accommodate all families this year. There was no need for a wait list or a lottery.
Last year at this time, Terry, the committee authorized increasing the PK teachers. So we were able to do that, which is great.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
Does the income currently cover the expenses?
Not all of it.
Then we need to raise it.
Yeah, and it has been well over 5 years since we've
Yeah,
talked about tuition.
I was
I'm
looking
going to
back.
go back maybe 15 years ago when we didn't even have a 5-day option. I feel like the last time we talked about tuition was when we changed the structure of it, because it was 2 or 3.
Mhm.
And now we have 2, 3, 4, and 5, or do we have a 4, Jill?
We do, we offer all of them.
Yeah. So it's been, I believe it's been 6 years plus since we've implemented that. And I don't think we've talked about the tuition since then.
And you could also consider, do you know what I mean? Maybe, we increase this first year and maybe it's, just a little.
Mhm.
I mean, if
I
we
mean, we're
raise the
definitely the
rate
lowest on this grid, so.
Yeah.
We're,
by a significant amount. I said I wasn't going to say significant, but I did. So
I will say significantly lower.
the other option is if we wanted to say, make it 325 per month, that would raise it. I don't want to confuse any further. That would be an additional 5 per day per month.
Well, where are we at? How far is the gap between paying for it and what we're receiving?
I don't have that analysis on hand. We also have grant funding that helps support the preschool program. So some of that gets applied as well. And that money that is grant funded could probably, as opposed to going to simply fund the program, could be used to expand or enhance like the testing services or
So we are not entertaining a motion this evening. This is just
Correct.
the kind of first discussion, first glance, but it will be on our agenda on, Jason, did we say the 3rd or the 10th?
The 10th.
10th, on the 10th. So
I can get the information on we can get the information on the number of students that are in, the amount that we're bringing in tuition revenue, and the total cost of the preschool program.
That'd be great.
I would like to see those numbers, please.
Yeah.
I'd also like to see a projected number of students that may be eligible or parents wanting to take part of the system.
I just want to.
I don't know we'd have any way of knowing interest. We'd have a way of knowing projections based on what we have from the towns in terms of what's coming up in the next few years, but we don't.
Well, I know we can't gauge the interest, but we can gauge the demographics.
Yep, we have that.
Matt, I had to step away for a second. Did you say how much additional revenue this increase would bring in? Like total?
I did not. I don't have the student enrollment numbers in front of me.
Okay. I'd like to see that because if
Yeah,
there are other ways.
I'll do a full cost. We'll put together the full cost of what the program is, what the current tuition is bringing in, and then what this additional would bring in.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to let the committee know too, that we have had parents, we are continuing to move forward with our kind of virtual visit and question and answer with our preschool teachers. But we will be sending out some information regarding preschool and enrollment, and hopefully be able to, send up any updates that are made to tuition if that occurs.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Jane, is it okay to move forward to
Yep,
the
yep.
facilities request?
Facility request.
So this was added very last minute, but in your packet, you have a request from our cheer team
Later.
looking to use the cafeteria at the middle school on the 27th. And this was the only meeting we had before that, and I didn't want to tell them no. They want to work with their choreographer, and they were working on the choreographer schedule. And this was the best date that they could come up with. Tanya reviewed it and signed off, meaning that the space is, available, but wanted to bring it before the committee for review.
Anybody have any questions about it?
I guess I didn't realize that a school team had to put an application in.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah, that I was going to point that out because Sarah said it last time when the Winter Guard had put in a request. Why is a school group have to fill out the use of facility?
If you
But
tell
it
us
is
that we
explained
don't
on
need to
here
do that
that it's
anymore,
due
we
to the
will not do
change.
that anymore. We're just following protocol.
Yeah,
That-
we're the ones who said we want to have a record of this, to have it on our calendars, to not confuse it. So I don't know that we approve it. But I do know that we're asking everybody to do it.
If the committee would prefer for the school-based teams like such as this, we could just put them on the calendar and then you could see them and we could just do the outside of district.
I
groups.
feel like that's the fair way to do it.
I think that was the intention too, so.
Yeah, like I understand the point, but yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a point where we would tell the cheerleading squad.
They
"No, you
can't do
can't
it,
use
right, right.
One of our facilities.
I would gladly make that change.
Yep, that's
We're
great.
all okay with it.
Anyone
I'm-
opposed?
I'm more than okay with it. This
Yeah.
is, I mean, these girls are working hard to get their stuff down. They don't need to be worried about not having a place to practice and learn their moves.
Right.
Yeah.
This is our way to support them on the backside.
All right, done.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'll just bring forward then the ones that are out of district requests.
Yep. Yep.
Beautiful. And then one last piece. I know a topic we probably don't want to come back to, but it's an important one. Given we are now back under 10 cases, in some cases less, of COVID-19 a day, I'd like to be able to lift the restriction on visitors if we can and go back to in-person meetings. So if that is something we can do, we could implement that.
I will entertain a motion to make that change.
I so move.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
Do we also discuss maybe like the participation in sports?
The ADs are meeting on that tomorrow morning.
Okay.
The athletic directors from the BV, the dual conference group.
Okay. Will we have to
Okay.
meet on that again for any voting there, or is that a decision that can be made tomorrow?
Did we vote on it the first time, Amanda? I think that just comes down from the league.
That does come down from the athletic directors. They make the decision. and
Okay.
then
Yep.
we can either reject it or go with it, but that just creates problems for
Yeah.
our teams if we reject it.
Okay.
And
I was just hoping that if there were games tomorrow, that kids would be allowed to go if that decision is made tomorrow.
I don't.
not
it's
sure.
not
I
up to
agree
us.
with that.
The limitation on spectators was in effect before we had a meeting to discuss it. So I would imagine the opposite is true as well.
Okay.
Yeah, the day that we met, Carrie, was the day that they made that decision. It was that same, I think it was a Monday, whatever day it was.
Okay. I know we discussed it. I just couldn't remember if we actually voted on it or not.
Me too.
the only
Oh,
thing I have is we need to make sure everyone is masked and you can't say socially distanced, but yes, socially distanced.
Which we will be on February 3rd, because we are going to meet in person at the middle school to have our budget workshop. And it is really ideal if people can get there in person. We can all take different tables. We don't have to be around a square. We can do whatever, but it just, we are more productive when we are face to face and arguing with Matt about 12 cents for glue sticks. Anybody have anything else? Okay. I
I
will.
have one maybe comment, maybe.
Okay, go. You made it just in time.
Sorry. I know I was having a really hard time with this, and I think I do want to say that I'm leaning against raising the preschool rates, just because I echo the sentiment that I'm not sure it's the year for it. And feel, because we do have grants and we have things that can cover that, I feel like that's better. And I'm having a really tough time with the discussion of if the tuition doesn't cover it, then we should raise it. Because I'm kind of in sticker shock from some of the budget items we just went through. I mean, band costs us $130,000 and we bring in 20,000. So I don't think that argument should apply for preschool. I think those are the people we should encourage to bring their kids to the pre-K program and not raise rates.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay. I will adjourn this meeting at 8:17 p.m. and I will see everyone on whatever the 3rd is. What day of the week is it? Thursday? Thursday.
Thursday.
Thursday the 3rd. All right.
Uh,
Thank you all.